Hi, my name is Dave Frank. Welcome to my 23rd Internet Masterclass. I'm coming to you tonight from Hari, NYC on 30th Street in the middle of Manhattan. Tonight I'm highly psyched to be presenting a clinic called The Science of Touch, 5 Ways to Control Your Piano Sound. This is an advanced class intended for, but not limited to, jazz pianists to introduce the art of touch in piano playing and performance. The subject of creating and controlling the aspect of touch in playing is a vast subject. In the classical piano tradition, there are entire schools of thought devoted to the science of controlling piano touch. The very production of a sound played by a finger is often subject to a complex and exacting application of various muscles, tendons, various non-related parts of the body, etc. For jazz pianists, the science of controlling touch is often somewhat overlooked or minimized because there's so much else to learn. To me, the art of controlling the touch of the notes you play is the final pain in the ass of playing. I mean, we've basically been wasting our entire lives as jazz pianists, learning the technique, our theory, learning how to solo and develop a solo, learning how to improvise and comp. The art of touch is all about this. Once you've learned what notes to play, the art of touch is how you play those notes. In my class tonight, I'll be zeroing in on the aspect of touch that relates to how to bring out and bring down the sound of certain notes from the chords and lines you play. This art of piano touch is very subtle. If you're playing a violin, for example, you can make a huge difference in your sound by playing with the bow or pizzicato, using various levels of vibrato, etc. If you're playing a wind instrument, you can create sound variations by changing the nature of the airflow that you put into your instrument, adjusting your embouchure, and so on. On piano, all we have to work with are these 10 little piggies and this complex machinery we see to my left. It's really amazing to see how using the science of touch that we'll study tonight can make a huge difference in your sound from note to note. Let's start by taking a look at the actual mechanism of the grand piano note in the form of an action model. This Rube Goldberg device is an accurate model of a single piano key on a grand piano. You can see how complex the mechanism is that creates the sound from the striking of the key to the hammer striking the strings. For starters, let's look at the names of some of the different parts of this mechanism. This piece of wood here is called the key stick. As pianists, we usually just see the end of it here where we're pressing on it to get the key. But you can actually see how long it is and how deep it goes into the piano. This trapezoidal shaped mechanism here, the whole entire thing is called the whippen. Each part of the whippen has lots of moving parts, and each part has a special role to play in the action of the piano. This vertical piece of wood here is called the jack. This is actually the most important thing we'll be studying tonight. The jack can move from left to right. This is called the knuckle on top of the whippen, and this long piece of wood at the top of the whippen is called the repetition lever. On top of the repetition lever, we have the hammer, of course, and this part here, this piece of wood, is called the back check, and that prevents the hammer from wobbling on the strings. The part of the mechanism that we're going to focus on tonight is right in here. This is called the escapement. The escapement is the place where the jack under the knuckle moves from the left to the right. If you play a note very, very softly, you'll see that the jack hardly moves at all. In this case, you're not going to hear a sound from the note at all. If I press a note a little harder, but still basically gently, you'll see that the jack moves from the left to the right, slowly. I'll do that again. If I give it a real wallop, you'll see that the jack moves almost instantaneously from left to right. and there we'll get a really loud sound from the note. Although visually this looks quite subtle, controlling the speed of the movement of the jack from left to right is an exact science that determines the sound and tone of the notes that you play. This place, the escapement, is where the action is. The science of bringing out notes from chords has everything to do with mind power. This is one aspect of playing I really enjoy, how to use the power of your mind to influence your fingers and affect your sound. As I mentioned before, the concept of bringing out some notes rather than others is simple. The note or notes you want to bring out of the chords you play need to go through the escapement first. This professional diagram will give you an idea of what we're talking about. In this case, we're playing a 4-note chord, and you can see here that this note, the top note, I'm intending to bring out louder than the others. And you can see how it goes through the escapement before the other ones. There are at least 5 basic ways to get one or more of the hammers through the escapement before the others. Some of these techniques use visualization as the generating force, and some are purely physical. Let's examine the 5 ways now. The first technique is to imagine that the note you are trying to bring out is being played deeper into the keyboard than the others. Whether or not this is actually happening, the simple intention of trying to press the louder note deeper into the key bed will be effective in bringing out that note. I'll try that technique, and I'm going to be thinking of pressing the C deeper into the keyboard than the others. If I just press the C and imagine it's touching the top of the key bed, you'll see that it's a soft sound. If I imagine that I'm pressing it deeper into the key bed, you can see how much louder it becomes. So now I'm going to play this chord and try to bring this top note out by pressing it deeper in my imagination into the key bed. Beautiful. The second technique is to play the louder note slightly before the others. It's slightly different but has a very similar effect. So now I'm going to think about taking the C and bringing it in just a little bit before the other notes. See how it pops right out. Very cool. The third technique is to vary the velocity of the notes being played. The faster the velocity, the more that note will stand out. If I'm playing with a slow velocity, it will be something like this. Actually, the finger's moving slowly through the key, and it has a soft sound. If I think of bringing that note faster, you're going to notice that the sound comes out a lot more. This is a question of the velocity of the strike. All of these different techniques are having the same effect. We're trying to move the jack in the key through the escapement faster on the note we want to bring out than the other notes. So in this case, I'm thinking of playing this one faster. When you're actually playing and practicing this stuff, you can use each technique or a combination of techniques to find the way that it works best for you. The fourth technique is to mentally direct your total arm weight through the note you want to make louder. If you intend that all of your arm weight will be directed through one or more notes, those notes will come out louder than the others. So in this case, again, I'll try to bring the C out, and I'll imagine that my arm weight is going all through the C. I can change that. Let's try to get the arm weight going through the D flat here. It sounds very different. That's the whole idea. Let's try to get that arm weight through the G. You see how we can get every note to pop out using these techniques. Let's try the C again. Arm weight through the C. Yeah. Our last technique is to start your keystroke motion higher for the louder notes than for the others. This is especially effective when talking about getting one hand to be louder than the other. You can experiment with different heights from which to start your keystroke, from starting to play a note from the key surface to a few inches higher than the key. If you start on the surface, you'll get a certain kind of a soft sound. If you start higher, it will naturally become louder. The first exercise is to play one note from between a half hour to 8 hours, trying to bring out every conceivable difference in tone, touch, and volume. This is a really nutty exercise. My teacher told me I had to do this for 8 hours. I told Charlie, I'm not going to do this for 8 hours. He said to me, you don't understand. You have to do this for 8 hours. I told Charlie, you don't understand. I'm not going to do this for 8 hours. I find recently that if I do this for a half an hour a day, it's sufficient to develop the art of touch. I'll demonstrate some of this, and we can start soft. You can use any one of the techniques we were talking about before to get that soft sound. We'll bring it up a little bit at a time. You can think about moving your arm weight through that note stronger. You can think about the velocity being faster to get a louder sound. You can think about pressing the note deeper into the keyboard. One or a combination of these techniques will work to get different volumes and tones out of that one note. Let's try to bring it up to the top level. I think we can go a little higher. There we go. Now we'll try bringing it down incrementally. See all the variations of sound we can get from one note. Next, you can move the velocity and the arm weight any way you want and just move that sound around from a loud sound to a soft sound, any way the ear tells you to do. Let's try that. The second exercise is sometimes called the Horowitz exercise because supposedly Vladimir used this one to achieve his incredible touch. Play a chord and consciously move the note you want to pop out up and down the chord, then move the note you want to pop out around randomly based on your intent. Try using each of the 5 techniques and find the approach or combination of approaches that works the best for you. I'll try this on a simple E-flat 13 chord. We'll try bringing out the G first. Now we'll try bringing out the D flat. You can hear the difference, it's pretty striking. Now we'll try bringing out the F. And finally the C. Thank you, Vladimir. As you practice these exercises, you'll be amazed at the nuances of touch, tone, and volume that you'll be able to get out of the piano. The good news is that these touch exercises, often compared to visiting your local dentist for a root canal, are basically easy and they work. They do take a lot of practice though. And no inappropriate touching, please. When you put all of this into practice, the most common note to bring out of any complex chord is most often the melody, usually, but not always, on the top of the chord. For two-hand chord playing, you want to bring out the melody note, which is usually on top, plus one other note within the chord. For single-hand comping, you usually want to bring out only the top note. The basic idea of complex playing is that you want 2 notes popping out of the music you play, and the rest of the notes can be thought of as atmosphere. Let me repeat that because that's a very important point. The basic idea when you're doing complex playing with multiple notes is that you usually want 2 notes popping out of the music you play, and the rest of the notes can be thought of as just being atmosphere. The second note you bring out, to a greater or lesser degree, can be an important note of the chord, for an example, a seventh or a tension. So in this E flat chord, we can bring out the D flat. That would be a kind of a normal one to bring out. Or you can bring out a tension, like the F for ninth. See, it sounds different. Or you can bring out an inner line that you'd like to accentuate. When you listen to a master like Keith Jarrett, the ultimate master of this, he is able to consciously create a musical landscape where the touch of each finger is consciously controlled to produce a unique sound for each note that he plays. This is genius. It's practically impossible to conceive of what the great classical and jazz touch masters have achieved with their playing at this level. Even a little of this knowledge and practice will make a noticeable difference in your sound. I'd like to take a moment now to play a recording of the late great jazz pianist Dave McKenna. Dave was a monster with bringing out the melody from all the other notes he was playing. You could drive a truck between Dave's melody and all the other notes of the chords. When you listen to this recording, Dream a Little Dream of Me, listen to how that top melody note sings its way out of the piano and into your heart. That was just beautiful. Dave was the greatest. I hope I've been successful in showing you the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the art of piano touch. Remember the basic concept of practicing. Don't let your practicing make you any crazier than you already are. especially with this stuff. It's really important to remember that. I invite you to enjoy 22 other in-depth free classes anytime, 17 on YouTube at the moment and 5 on Ustream. The Ustream classes include Eric Dolphy, Frank Zappa, Charlie Parker, an early Keith Jarrett class, and Bruce Hornsby. Thanks also to my videographer and editor on this project, Pfeiffer Garbisi, and my cousin Chris Glatley for his time and expert coaching. Chris has a cool piano store in Canandaigua, New York, and is an expert tuner and piano technician. As usual, if you have any questions, compliments, complaints, or tomatoes, feel free to send them anytime to dave@davefrankjazz.com. Blessings from New York City. Keep swinging!